what is an ENT featured conversion system? Well, let's talk about what it does. It targets customers who are ready to buy. It can work with any budget, and it's based on proven results in business and military special operations, my background. In essence, it's storytelling on display. You see, SportsCenter has a storytelling brand called SC Featured, and it demonstrates the spirit of excellence in athletics. Let me ask you a question. Does your business have a featured story that demonstrates this spirit of excellence in your business? You see, SportsCenter and SC Featured talks about the power of sports. But imagine instead the power of entrepreneurship, ownership, and this spirit of excellence in your business. In fact, for this part of the process, we take the power of sports and add the stories of your ENT entrepreneurial journey. And you get ENT Featured. This is a story-based follow-up system that demonstrates through your featured story the power of entrepreneurship, ownership, and the same spirit of creative excellence. Because the secret to accelerating your influence, scaling your brand, and multiplying your revenue is your story. Story is the vehicle to instill the beliefs in the minds of your audience. And your story told correctly makes you the hero in the mind of your customer. And it makes you the tribal leader of your market. Because from the earliest recorded history, storytelling was a method used by tribes to communicate, educate, protect, and connect. Storytelling is fundamental to the human experience. It unites people and drives stronger, deeper connections. It demonstrates by example the change that needs to occur and instills the associated beliefs so you become the only choice. It disarms psychological mechanisms that create doubt and replaces it with belief and a new understanding, and it aligns all the pieces of your marketing machine into a seamless, emergent platform and experience. Your market and your business, in fact, need your story. Note, during this training, we won't have time to unpack how to build your ENT featured follow-up system. So, if you want help with this, feel free to reach out. Seth Godin said, marketing is no longer about the stuff that you make, but about the stories you tell. Sun Tzu in The Art of War said, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. So, if marketing is about telling your story to subdue doubts without fighting, then a featured story makes you the war commander in your prospect's mind and transforms you into an army of one. Let's talk about some different war strategies. This is called unconventional warfare. It's the strategy of choice for special operations forces, and it's covert influence accelerated. It really is covert actions or hidden actions that create overt or visible effects. For our purposes, we're going to call it unconventional business warfare, where influence and action are the emergent properties. The process is called covert conversion, which creates this featured effect, and it starts with target client research done right, combined with your narrative angle, iterated with your audience, and then that produces the change that we're looking for. Let's look at some examples of covert conversion in battle. In 2010, Mullen-Lowe Group, the Colombian military, and 1st SIAT Battalion worked together to demobilize the oldest standing guerrilla force in the world. Let's get some background. Colombia had this guerrilla force, the oldest in the world, was over 60 years old, called the FARC. In English, it's the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, and the wars were financed through extortion, illegal mining, terrorism, human, drug, and gun trafficking. The cost was 5.7 million displaced people and over 220,000 deaths. Let's look at how the military actually saves lives through this process of covert conversion. The goal was to demobilize guerrilla fighters. The target audience's current condition was, after interviewing former guerrillas, they realized that the guerrillas are as much prisoners of their organization as the ones they hold hostage. Let's define the problems and limitations. First of all, remote access. They live in the jungle wearing fatigues. So how do we reach out to them? Also, if they attempt to escape from these jungle camps, the commanders would kill them. So they put together a messaging strategy. The first prototype was a 30-second TV spot featuring gorilla stories. But it was flawed. They used actors to hide the gorillas' identities. The result? Minimal success. The target audience could tell something was off. Note, in your business, what happens if you keep pushing a message and strategy that just isn't working? You get ad fatigue, list burnout, no engagement, and lower sales. So, in this mission, just like in your business, the answer here is to pivot and evolve. Iteration 2. Using modified voices from actual former gorillas, they did radio spots where they told their war stories to target lower echelon fighters. Giovanni Andres, he was recruited at 17 and he met a girl and they fell in love. But falling in love amongst the lower echelon fighters is strictly forbidden, so they separated them. Giovanni's girlfriend went to another camp, and while there, she decided she wanted to demobilize. So she knew the area well, she left, she got interviewed later on by the ad agency, and they put her on the air. Giovanni heard this radio spot and knew it was her. So he decided, she left, I can do it too. So he demobilized. This had great effect, it had great results. In fact, they started to target commanders instead of just the lower echelon fighters. Using loudspeakers and helicopters, former commanders told their war stories. Now it was commanders recruiting commanders. The results of this, since the ads were on the air, 2,000 people demobilized. But this wasn't enough. The FARC leaders counteracted by telling their fighters that the government was forcing former fighters to cooperate or be killed. They had to iterate to better speak to the target audience's actual experience. This time, they decided to focus on a shared value. Operation Christmas. The significance of Christmas was a shared value. In 2010, they noticed that during Christmas, the percentage of demobilizations would increase dramatically. December was a vulnerability for the guerrilla leaders. The question became, how do we use the elements of Christmas, the jungle, and fighters walking all day to solve this problem? Here's the answer. They chose 9 strategic pathways in the jungle and covered 75-foot trees with Christmas lights. And they had a sign that would light up only when the gorillas happened to walk by, which triggered a motion sensor. This actually moved 331 more guerrilla fighters to leave the camps. Some didn't even have to see it to believe it, and they left as well. It looked just like this. In fact, this is a picture of one of the trees, and the sign that lit up said, "If Christmas can come to the jungle, you can come home. Demobilize. It's Christmas. Everything is possible." This time, they had to come up with a new angle because they came across a very important discovery. Operation Rivers of Light. So this is the 4th iteration. Field trips were conducted to get more insights and feedback by these former guerrilla fighters. A new element was discovered. Rivers. They don't walk as much as everyone thought. The rivers are actually the highways of the jungle. So over 6,000 messages, toys, trinkets, and personal notes were gathered from towns that used to be under FARC rule. It looked just like this. They put everything in these plastic balls and dumped them in the rivers. So when the fighters would go by through the rivers, they would see them, pick them up, and open them. It looked just like this at night. This generated, on average, a demobilization every 6 hours. But they're not done yet. This time they wanted to show them the way. Operation Bethlehem. Iteration 5. The next Christmas, they wanted to not only bring lights to the jungle, but they also wanted to lead them out of it. They placed huge spotlights in the sky attempting to symbolize a freedom spot. However, this was still very dangerous. I think the guerrilla leaders realized that those areas were key spots for people to run away. So they started to mark other ways out of the jungle with handbills that said, "Guerrilla, this Christmas, follow the light that will guide you to your family and your freedom." This next iteration, they dove deep into psychological modeling and messaging. This time they were speaking human to human. Operation Voices of Our Mothers. Iteration 6. The process started to work. So, as peace talks began, the guerrilla fighters no longer feared death, but they were afraid that they wouldn't be accepted back into their communities. The decision was made. They needed to stop talking to soldiers and instead speak human to human. They used their mothers' voices. Moms of guerrilla fighters volunteered to give pictures of their daughters and sons when they were kids. This last prototype moved the whole country to another level. This was personal now, down to the very person receiving the message. Thousands of posters were created with this main message. Before you were a guerrilla, you were my child. Come back this Christmas. I'm waiting for you. The results of all these missions, over 17,000 demobilizations leading to peace talks and reorganization of FARC into a political party. The FARC went from fighting against the system to joining and becoming part of civil society, leading to a safer and more prosperous Colombia. Let's go ahead and review the iterative strategies of Operation Christmas. We'll start with the current behaviors. First, the FARC was waging an insurgency. So the question is, how do we get them all the way to the psychological objective of integrating back into society? It won't happen all at once, so we have to go step by step. The first iteration didn't work, so they had to evolve the message, which became radio spots and stories. This led to iteration 3, Operation Christmas, which led to Operation Rivers of Light, and that led to Operation Bethlehem. This led to the supporting objective, entering into peace talks. Now the guerrillas were no longer afraid to die. Now they were afraid they wouldn't be accepted back into society. So iteration 6, Operation Voices of Guerrillas' Mothers. This led them to safely integrating back into civil society, the actual psychological objective. So this is covert conversion in action, starting with the base of target client research, adding on your narrative angle and iterating until you get the change you're looking for. Let me ask you something. If this approach can turn terrorists and guerrillas into peaceful citizens, how effective do you think it will be at turning your prospects into customers? Covert conversion is an iterative process that results in a value-filled world for your client to engage with, and it's never linear. It looks like this, but not this, or this, and definitely not this. But it's the key to all this. Over a 70% increase in business as all these pieces are now able to work together. You see, most coaches and consultants are obsessed with the latest funnels and traffic sources and completely ignore their featured story and system to convert that traffic into high-paying clients. They're obsessed and frenzied over the latest Facebook ads feature, the next best targeting option, messenger bot, or shiny funnel widget. But in reality, all they're doing is throwing a box of puzzle pieces at the wall and hoping it puts itself together. Now, the rainmakers and alchemists have 3 things in their businesses that the grinders and struggle bunnies do not. The 3 things you need for success are a targeted offer with high quality converting traffic, a proven process that will turn that traffic into high paying clients that keep coming back, and a built-in featured story to connect all the pieces and create a captive audience. So what does this system look like? It looks like the right targeted traffic, the right message that strikes a nerve and generates a response. And we do this by calling out your ideal client and speaking about his pain in rich, vivid detail that makes him feel like we tore a page out of his own personal diary. And it makes him consciously believe that we have the answer to his problem. Once we get their attention, we prove that we can solve the problem by solving part of the problem for free via a short video training or webinar, much like this one. It's like handing them the keys to experience results in advance, and then just ask them to reach out if they would like additional help. And then follow up with your ENT featured email system and take your place as their trusted advisor. The results of executing this correctly is that you will have a scalable platform generating new revenue and targeted clients in a niche you own every single month. And you will finally have that process and platform that does the conversion heavy lifting for you. Using these strategies doubled LWI's email open rates. Lily said it's like it's woken them up. Using these same strategies created a captive and engaged audience for Chase Hughes. He said, "This is amazing. I've never had people reach out to me looking for missing emails in a sequence because they don't want to miss any part of the story." Tom said, "This is like a juggernaut lead machine. And when I read my own emails from the featured story, I'm like, man, who is this guy? I want to meet him. And then I realize this guy's me." Now, to execute this predictable client system correctly, you need to get these 5 things in alignment. And I refer to this as cracking the code. The 5 things are message, market, media, system, and a featured story. When you have these 5 things in alignment, you can unlock the code and literally have some amazing results, just like my clients have experienced, where success emerges from the right combination. Now again, you have to have the right system to be able to do this. And you can do it the hard way, which is like going up to lock and trying to guess the code. But there are more than 10,000 possible combinations to a 4-digit lock. And you can try to crack it yourself, and who knows, maybe you'll find a combination that works in a year or 2 or 3, but most probably never. Or you can simply do it the easy way and just get the code and unlock it and get the results immediately. And that's what I do all day in my own business and for my clients and their businesses.